Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the finals of Trackmania Grand League, the fall 2020 season.
So, we're about to get started with the first map, which is going to be Paradise. Remember, this is Papou's map pick. Now, for those of you wondering if you're wondering about the audio issues, it's not coming. It might have been Discord playing a little bit of a fit with the microphone that I'm currently using. Unfortunately, we can't really do anything about that. We'll try to solve the issue in the pauses between the two maps.
Sounds rather good on my end. I'm not sure. Maybe a bit of crackling, but I think we're all good to go here. We'll make the best of it. First warm-up coming through. All the players will be starting at the same time, but one detail in warm-ups is Carl Jr. This is something we see time and time again. Carl Jr. intentionally releases the acceleration at the start of warm-ups because he does not want to play at the same pace as the others. He wants to just drive his own race, always get in the mindset, get in the groove of things on maps. So he decides to release the acceleration and put himself at a comfortable last place at the start.
Yeah, exactly. Not to give away the potential pace advantage that he has to his opponents. Although the pace advantage can be a bit pointed out with the leaderboards if someone looks closely enough in the campaigns of the Grand League that have been released for training for the players. Now coming up to the what I like to call the small turnover section, just after this dirt part right here, before Kappa and Papou running side by side in this warm up. And here it is pretty important to not go up too high to avoid getting a little bit too much travel time, but also keep your transition as smooth as possible as it conditions this corner, which leads then to this drift before the freewheel section.
Yeah, and here, as you can see, we're currently spectating Kappa here versus Papou. It's all about your speed through that long freewheeling section. The freewheeling, it disables your car's engine. You go very slowly until the next checkpoint. It turns back on. Here's the identity, though. All the players opting for the high line in the top three here. There is a spin line that you could do, but it looks like the high line is going to be the name of the game here, as Pack there wins the warm-up just out of Kappa and Papou. We're going live with the first round. The way the format works, only the first place player here gets a point, and it's the first to 2 points that will be our first advancee into the next round.
So the round has just started, and I think we should get a little bit of a helicam action going on. If you would like so, Virtual, going to the follow all.
I will happily join into the helicam
to get a little bit of an overview of the field. Currently, Kappa leading the field, not by much, with Carl Jr. and Pack 2 and 3 at the moment, with the jump coming up right now. Spam towards the back end of the field, getting a little bit left behind by the rest of his competitors. Pack, Carl Jr. and Gwen, your top three at the checkpoint before the dirt coming up. Pack and Kappa looking pretty strong at the exit of that negative camber dirt corner. Make sure not to go too high, otherwise you will lose a ton of momentum through there. And yeah, we're seeing that currently everything looks good, although Spam not looking good at the present moment on this opening lap. Currently at the last place and having touched a bit on the outside of the dirt, it seems like. So it will be completely done and dusted for Spam unless a mistake happens from the fellow competitors. With the identity coming up right now, it seems as though Pack and Gwen are locked in the battle, with Papou touching a bit and Gwen as well. So rip from French players.
Big mistake from Gwen coming out just before the identity there. And he will be put a bit down. It is 2 laps, so maybe he can make a comeback happen. But the identity here, this will be the size of Kappa, who we're expecting right now, gets it really, really good. Is going to go up the second wall here, chasing Pack, who seemingly has a very, very good pace on this map. He won the warm-up. He's currently 0.3 out of Carl going into the second lap. And where is Papou? This was his map pick. He's currently 1.5 seconds behind.
Papou indeed at 1.5 seconds behind, but yeah, Spam having a really disaster first lap. He's 3.1 seconds down on Pack, currently leading the field and making a break for freedom at the front of the race at the moment. He's pulling the gap to half a second to Carl Jr. in P2, and then Kappa trying to remain within the distance of the Canadian, but he touches the wall, missing the drift, and he will fall down to the depths of 6th position as Affi, Papou, and Gwen scoop by him, with Aurel and Spam having a battle of their own for P7. So Aurel must have made a mistake somewhere as well that I didn't really manage to catch. So yeah, Pack currently looking pretty safe out front, even though the gap is only half a second.
Yeah, it is going to be a battle here between Pack and Carl Jr. The second and third place in the regular season, now battling out the end here of Paradise. Carl Jr. 0.4 of a second behind Pack. Is he going to let Pack run away with 1 point here, or will he try everything to contest it in the end? Nothing to lose here, really. If he fails it, he'll get 0 points regardless. We could see a risk here from Carl Jr. to snipe Pac, but Pac extends his lead, half a second ahead. One last ice turn here, and ladies and gentlemen, Pac will get the first point.
Pac finishing in first place and getting that point for the win in the race, with Carl Jr. finishing in P2, Papou in third, Gwen, Kappa, Spam, Aurel, and Affi complete your top 8, and Pac will be finalist already. He needs to win one more round, one more 2-lapper in this state to move through to the next phase. We're heading already with the start with a bit of Westcam action on my end. I'm inviting you to do the same, Wirtual, to get a bit of an overview at the start, and the whole shot will be for Spam after the first checkpoint with a 10.958.
Yeah, and you can see that one red name tag there in the pack. That is Pac himself. He now only needs to win one more round, but this is when the pressure is on, because if you get into a set of rounds where you don't
Spam!
Oh, big mistake from Spam there. Losing out, having to do the safe route, and that will maybe ruin his chances here for this round. No way of coming back from that. So all eyes on Pac now, though, as he has managed to make his way up to the front of the field into this lap as well. Starting to show signs here of maybe already closing out with a double, but the others are still following close by.
I was gonna say it's a French assault just behind Pac, but in fact one of the members of the French assault, Gwen, has touched a little bit on the outside of the dirt, so he's down in P7 and completely out of the running for the lead. Meanwhile, Papou and Aurel are having a bit of a tussle, but Papou seems to have made a mistake as well, so he's down in P6 now as well. P6 or P7 with Affi having made a mistake. So Aurel holding up the honors for France will try to deny Pac, heading into the identity right now. The Englishman will have to try and fight it off as much as he can. It's going to be over to the finish line to the side. Pac seems as though he got this in the bag, unless the exit is catastrophic for the Brits. No, he will go through to the next phase. No, actually it's a second lap. Sorry, I completely messed up. Anyways, they got debated as well. So yeah, the fatigue pulling in as usual with me. Sorry if I sound a little bit downbeat. It's been pretty rough for me over a couple of weeks, okay? I know I might sound a little bit downbeat, but yeah,
no,
bear with me.
You're fine. One more lap coming through. Everybody makes some mistakes here and there, but Pac seems to not make any mistakes at all. Look at this guy drive. He's 1 second in front into the second round here. He could make it a clean 2-0 sweep to move on into the next round, the top 6. Only Aurel really in range to contest him here, and he is almost a second behind, and Pac is going to know this. He has a good lead to work with, coming towards the identity, just that between him and advancement here.
Excuse me, whilst we were talking about this and was excusing for the debate, Carl Jr. has made a pretty humongous mistake that I did miss, and he's found himself down in last place, so not really where we were expecting the reigning Grand League champion to be, heading into the second lap of the race. Meanwhile, Pac heading into the identity with 1.3 seconds of an advantage over Aurel in P2. It's going to be now down to him to get this identity down to the wire and not go too wide at the exit of this final wall ride. We've seen some heartbreaks, especially in the Open Grand League, and Pac will wait and move through to the next phase of this final. Aurel finishing in second, so close but no cigar in the end for the Frenchman.
Yeah, and that is so clean from Pac. 2-0 quickly, getting it done. We have one more lap coming up here on Paradise, and maybe now the other players will finally have a chance, because what a performance there by the Englishman, going extremely fast here on Paradise.
Yeah, absolutely no contest in this one. Pac completely sweeping through his first 2 rounds and easily bagging himself a spot in the next phase of the final. Aurel touching a bit on the outside of the dirt will find himself down in last place pretty prematurely here, barely 2 checkpoints in for the GamingPrivé.com player, and he finds himself 6/10 down on the leader heading into the jump now. Will Spam have learned his lesson? Yes, he has, and does not make contact with the outside wall through the jump. Meanwhile, Papou trying to make a break for freedom, but the rest of the pack is with him as we head into the camber dirt, and Kappa touching a bit on the outside, and he's down in last place as Aurel scoots by him.
Yeah, that was a mistake from Kappa. It looked for a second like Gwen had made the mistake, but he is now up in the battle for first, and wow, it is the 2 players we have seen all season long be the fastest 2 players in a 1-lap format, but now they need to do it in 2 laps. Gwen and Papou here, the speed demons against Spam. Bit of a contradiction here when we see these 3 players go side by side. Spam, one of the more consistent, but right now he is challenging for first, coming towards the identity, will actually overtake that lead from Papou. Going up the wall now, they're all going for the high line. Spam here nailing it down beautifully, holding the lead just a car length ahead of Papou, a few hundreds at that. But going into the next lap, Papou here risking over the ice. That will not work out. Papou climbing straight into the finish. And onto the second lap, he's out of the fight. It is now between Spam and Carl, the two old teammates of Team Dignitas.
Yeah, the two old teammates of Team Dignitas and the two World Championship rivals. If we were actually to wind the clock back a few years ago, there are quite a few World Championship titles between them. 4, in fact. 2012 for Spam and 2013 through 2015 for Carl Jr. And currently the Canadian taking the lead from Spam before the negative camber dirt turn coming up right now, although Spam has got a bit more speed, but he was forced to brake, otherwise he was going to be going a bit wider and pull a Kappa, as I like to call it. Kappa, who has unfortunately DNF, so the Veloci esports driver not doing himself a favor by having the retirement here as we're heading into the turnover section for the two leaders, with Gwen a little bit further behind than he would like to be, but still within not too far away from the leading duo, with around 0.4 of a second between first, second, and third.
Yeah, but look at these two. It's been such a close battle here between Spam and Carl Jr. all the way through now. 0.10 of a second. One of them might get a point here. It is looking to be Spam right now, following Pack, getting a point here on Paradise, and that could be great for him, as he has not gotten the ability to choose a map. He is ahead of Carl Jr. One identity to go here, and will be Spam. Carl Jr. attacking with more speed, but no, it will be Spam holding his own and getting a point on the board here. 0.22 of a second ahead of Carl Jr.
Carl Jr. going so close to touching the CP on the at the second to last identity. This final CP before the finish line was so close for Carl. It really kind of sent a bit of a heart flutter as I saw it unfold from the Canadians' perspective. But yeah, Carl Jr. finishing in P2, but Spam going through to finalist status as we're going through to the next map, which is going to be Semi-Rammies, if I recall correctly, which is Pack's map pick in this instance.
Yeah, so Pack here, he beat himself to his own pick, will not get to play it. He's already made it on through here, but that win is huge for Spam, who is maybe not one of the pre-thought to be favorites here. He already has a point now after 3 rounds, and he can now work with that, as it is going to go down until there's just 3 players left, and he will always have that 1 point on the board. So huge start here for Spam, needs 1 more to secure his position. But that is a great start for the Dutchman.
Yeah, it isn't.
On to Semi-Rammies here. Yeah,
it is indeed a great start for the Dutchman, and I will be fair. I wasn't expecting Spam to get a point on the board so early. We were only on round 3 when he managed to score his race win. So who knows what can happen for the Dutchman? He's got quite a bit of a gap to work with. There are still 5 spots to be decided in the final 6. So take that for what you will. But it might look really good for Spam at the moment.
It might indeed, and it is also a warning sign for others who maybe hadn't anticipated this. I would think that Papou there, picking Paradise out of the maps he could choose, that maybe he would want to get a point there himself, but it could also be, as we mentioned, a reverse psychology, that he picked that map to have his favorite maps later. We will soon find out, I think, but in this warm-up on Semi-Rammies, he is one of the first players. You saw the identity there, the sets of jumps. The players cleared as best as they could, and Kappa there winning the first lap of the warm-up, and he is also one of the fastest players on this map.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, if I can actually check back on the timesheets here, Papou, again, as we said a little bit earlier, holding the world record on the 2-lapper format of Semi-Rammies with 2:18.071. Carl Jr. a bit behind with a 2:18.177. Might have a bit of a card to play as we're heading back to the Helicam once again for the start of Semi-Rammies with Spam with it all to do. 1 round win to go.
Exactly, but this one could be very tricky. There are some players, like we mentioned, Papou and also Gwen, I've noticed, Carl Jr., they're all very, very fast here in practice. And it is almost a second gap down to the other players in the time attack rankings. Of course, it's something else playing in a live round, but it is no surprise to me. We're finding Gwen at the top of the field, had to release there to stay alive in the race, and he will be overtaken by everyone. But Spam falling straight out, and he will not be securing finalist in his first attempt here.
Yeah, Spam and Kappa having both made the exact same mistake at the exact same point on the track, so both completely out of the running. Meanwhile, Gwen currently leading the field in front of Carl Jr. and Aurel, who are currently battling for P2, although the battle is now hotting up for the lead right now, as we're heading for the first time in the identity on this map. Aurel having a really good landing through there, although Gwen is looking to keep that first place and get that for keepsakes. But so far, Aurel having a good outing. Papou as well, moving back up to P3. Carl Jr. having made a bit of a mistake in the identity, is down to P4. Aurel will cross the start-finish line at the end of lap 1 in the lead in front of Gwen and Papou. A French 1-2-3 at the moment.
Yeah, and 1:14.9 there for the first lap. That is looking like a fiery hot race. 1:11 actually at that. So this could be a very fast round here to start off things on Semiramis. Aurel now up in front, and we have to mention Aurel's story coming into this. He is the player who lost the most amount of points in the regular season. It was looking like he wasn't going to make it to playoffs. In the last step, he got 62 points, secured it by just 6 points over Massa, and now he's here leading a lap, potentially getting a point to move on into the tournament. Huge one here for Aurel if he can just beat out Gwen here and get a point, but Gwen, he is not going to give him anything for free here, and Aurel clips the corner, giving him a very bad setup for the identity. Will still make the first jump, but now has a 0.1800 gap to catch up, and it is increasing. Aurel trying to risk here, gets more speed, maybe.
Oh, Gwen.
It could be a snipe here with the extra speed. Will he overtake Gwen just in the nick of time? He will, and he gets a point for himself, just barely.
I wanted to say Gwen went with a much riskier strat. I was actually checking the perspective of Carl Jr., where Gwen actually went so far down the inside. I actually clipped a little bit of the hill next to the grass road on the landing, which is I think what cost him so much speed in the end that allowed Aurel to move through. And now we're moving into a double finalist situation, the duel between Aurel and Spam to get a round win on the board, but they've got other players to actually contend with. So it's going to be pretty tough. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how these two will fare in this 7-man race environment.
Yeah, Eye of the Tiger there for Aurel at the end. Now has the red name. Needs to do it one more time to qualify. Carl. Was that a big mistake? Yeah. Losing him about a second here, maybe more in the additional speed that he does not have. So Carl Jr. already close to out of this round and has to refocus for the next one, and our two finalists are currently trailing the field.
Our two finalists are indeed trailing the field, and Spam being the one a bit further away than the lead pack compared to Aurel. 52 hundredths of a second between himself and the leader, currently Gwen. Although look at this four-way fight for the lead, heading into the identity for the first lap. Affi seems to have had a clip at the identity, so yeah, he will be dead in the water. Meanwhile, Papou has managed to overtake Gwen, not quite as Gwen manages to get back at him. Aurel back up to P3, but touches the wall just before the ring as well, and Aurel will be out of the fight. Meanwhile, Papou heads into the final lap in the lead, and Gwen touches the inside wall as I spectate him, and so Kappa, who moves through into second place, and so it will be a battle to get a point on the board between the 2018 World Champion and the beta season runner-up right now, with Papou currently having the advantage.
Yeah, and you gotta mention Papou's story. He has won a lot of tournaments in the dirt discipline, always been trying here to get a title in the multi-style. That is the new main competitive format, and he has been consistently in the top in the finals, but not quite making it all the way. Could this be his moment, Carl? Kappa making a big mistake. Papou will overtake, and now Kappa is putting himself in a bit of a weird situation. 0.3 to gain to get a point over Papou. This is a very, very favorable position for Papou if he can hold it across the final 3 jumps here. First one out will hold the lead. Kappa getting it slightly better, landing earlier on the platform, risking everything he can. No, it will not be. And Papou can hold this all the way if he gets the last jump. That is going to be 1 point on the board for the Frenchman.
1 point on the board for Papou, who moves through into finalist status, and so we're moving into a 3-way fight between Papou, Kappa, between Papou, Spam, and Aurel. Sorry, I said Kappa, but no. Unfortunately, the beta season champion, as Dan Simmons in my chat rightfully pointed out, has made a mistake just at the final jump on the identity, the final lap. So yeah, unfortunately for the Czech driver, it has not panned out.
Yeah, and now, as you can see, the names are getting more and more red here. There's a lot more players that have made it to that finalist status, and it is a warning sign for the players that still haven't gotten a point, that now is the time to step up, because soon enough, one of these, 2 of these, and 3 of these players are going to advance through, and there's ever fewer spots left to take for themselves. Currently spectating Kappa here, going on to the first lap of Semiramis here, the last round of Semiramis. If he wants to get a point and redeem his mistake in the last race, this is when he has to do it now.
Yeah, he absolutely has to come through and deliver the goods now, especially with the current situation that we have with the three finalists. Papou having a bit of a protracted hang time that will demote him down to P4, and even having warranting him a clip of the identity, so he's done in last place, and Papou will be out of the running. Meanwhile, Gwen and Kappa battling for the lead, heading towards the final jump through the reset ring, and Gwen will lead into the final lap with Kappa just behind him, 2/10 behind in second place, and Aurel in P3 looking to potentially get back into the lead contention and try to secure his place in the final 6.
Ooh, Kappa there going millimeters from the wall in that drop down. Stays alive here though, and he is in a similar situation as the previous round. Only this time, he not only has to fend off Papou, he now has to fend off Gwen, who is the 16-year-old prodigy in this game, the Serrator Cup champion, the Twitch rival champion, and he is actually catching up to the man who is said to win it all this year. Gwen currently only 0.1 of a second ahead of Kappa. Make that 0.06 here, make that dead even as Kappa here, making up ground. Every single turn he gets a few hundreds, and now it will be all decided in the final identity here.
Yeah, here we go. First jump for Kappa and Gwen. Kappa landing maybe a little bit early, not quite. Carl Jr. also coming back into the fight in P3 right now. Gwen and Kappa, first and second. Carl Jr. in P3. Will he go for the more aggressive line? No. Gwen and Kappa, it's dead even as we're heading into the final jump. Gwen holding up the lead slightly, and he will get himself a point on the board and move through to finalist status as well, just ahead of Kappa. With Carl Jr. in P3, Spam, Aurel and Papou will get denied this time around, with even a DNF from Papou and Affi to complement that. And so 4 finalists are going to be heading into the third map of the night, which is going to be Starglide, which is Carl Jr.'s map pick.
So close there, and there you get to see the double-edged sword of this format. Kappa there, 2 second places on Semiramis. Great performance by the Czech player, but if he does not win a round, if he does not close it out, then he is still on 0 points. So Kappa there, very close to reaching that finalist mode, but not quite. Will get some more chances now as we're going on to the third map. This is Starglide, picked by Carl Jr.
Starglide picked by Carl Jr., which was introduced as early as Step 2 and was played all the way through to Step number 4 alongside Hoverboard. And Starglide, very much like Hoverboard, was reputed upon its introduction to be one of the carnage maps that really ensued a lot of havoc. But it's probably Hoverboard that is more the carnage map that we remember, with 4 to 5 players being dead on the first lap alone, which is pretty a crazy statistic. So heading into this map with 6 rounds already played, Papou, Gwen, Aurel, and Spam are now battling for 4 spots in the the final 6, with Kappa, Affi, and Carl Jr. yet to win a round. So the pressure is going to be on, especially for some of those players that we're expecting to get through and deliver good goods and move through to the next phase of the finals.
Yeah, and as you said, we do of course remember the matches here in the Steps pack. One of the best players on this map. But Carl Jr. has 2 6-lap wins here, and he also currently holds the world record for 2 laps. So now that he's currently sitting at 0 points, I think we're all turning our eyes to Carl Jr. to see if he can deny the others and also get himself into finalist mode as we're going live here on Starglide. This is his map. This is his moment.
It is his moment. It is his map pick, and he's got a point to prove. He's got actually a youngster that he wants to fend off and prevent from getting his very first major title. Even though he let the Serrator Cup 2020 slip through his fingers, he does not look to do the same with TMGL, as we're getting live with a bit of Westcam action from the back of the cars at the start of Starglide with this first lap. You can see the red names, Papou, Aurel, Gwen, and Spam already in finalist status, and Affi being the first man to make a mistake at the first checkpoint. Whole shot for Aurel with an 11.335.
Yeah, Carl Jr. here, as you said, hungry now to defend his title. He won it back in March, just as this game was announced. And now he's here in another playoff, in another final of the same tournament, trying to prove himself. Kappa making a mistake there, and his name will remain white on the scoreboard. Not going to get finalist with that mistake, but Carl Jr. here currently trailing 3 finalists in the first lap of Starglide, trying to catch up as they're coming towards the identity. Will make this turn across the freewheeling. Now the hairpin gets a good speed there. Tight line. Catching up ever so slightly. It's hard to spot the differences, but he is making it ever closer with each turn here, with each jump through the identity. Will get a lot of speed, but the most important one is the final one here, because the speed you get here will stack up all the way towards the next lap, and Carl Jr. not getting a lot of speed here, and it is all red up in the front here as we go towards the second lap.
Yeah, it is indeed all red in the front of the field. Car having a really sluggish landing at the final gliding section of the identity. Meanwhile, Papou, Gwen, Spam 1, 2, 3 with Aurel in P4, half a second down on the leader. Currently it is the Gamers Origin driver leading the Game War driver by around a tenth of a second. The gaps are still somewhat close between the two Frenchmen, with Spam a little bit behind. We're looking to actually try to put the pressure on Gwen and try to make someone make a mistake and try to actually capitalize on that to move through into second place, potentially get himself a win on the board and try to sell off that place in the final 6 as we head to the jump. Gwen having a slow exit out of that corner preceding the jump, so Spam moves into P2 as we're heading into the identity in a few seconds.
Yeah, this is going to be where it's all decided. Carl Jr. is, I think, a bit too far behind to do anything about this. It is going to be a second advanced player through the next 2 rounds. But which one is going to be Papou here leading the field? Though if Spam gets this win, it could be huge. He could go on to second, where nobody expected him to. But Gwen is not out of the fight, and he will actually overtake Spam as Papou is leading this one. Who's going to get the most speed out of the final jump? It is going to be Papou holding that lead. Can he get a better drift than Gwen, who is chasing, getting a bit closer, but Papou will hold that, and he will move on to the next round, 0.15 of a second ahead of Gwen.
Yeah, Papou moving through to the final 6, so we already get 2 out of the 6 players that are going to move through to the next phase. Gwen might be the one next on the list to actually get through to the next phase of the grand final, but he's got Spam and Aurel to actually fight against, and Spam was looking pretty good from what we saw during the previous round, maybe lacking a bit of pace to do anything against Papou's pace, but definitely in with contention for a win and a place in the final 6.
Yeah, and one player that I am looking out for right now is going to be Affi. He has 0 points. He crashed in the very first lap of Starlight here the first time. Did not really get to show what he's capable of, because this is one of Affi's strongest maps. When he gets that pace and that rhythm down, this man is one to look out for. Currently, he has made it through the start, and I think we're going to be able to see Affi here try to step up to get that spot for himself and try to deny the others.
Yeah, it's looking still pretty close. No big mistakes so far compared to what we saw in the previous round for all players. They're still within 3/10 of each other as we're heading to the identity. Nice snap over from Affi as we saw, but a touch of the wall on the inside that will deny the Swiss driver to make anything happen with Gwen off by Aurel. 1, 2, 3. Carl and Spam 4th and 5th, staying within close proximity of each other as we're heading to the final glider of the identity, coming towards the final lap of the race. And Kappa will move through into the lead with a gap of a 10th in front of Aurel in P2, and Gwen in 3rd place, Carl Jr. overtaking Spam before the start of lap 2.
Yeah, now is the moment for Kappa to step up here. Twice in 2nd place on Semiramis. That is not good enough in this format. You need to get that also valuable 1st place and that also valuable point on the scoreboard. 0.10 of a second ahead of Aurel currently as he's trying to get his first one, and Aurel here with a better uphill could potentially move on to the next round. Where is the push going to be had here for Aurel? Where he's going to make that stand? He's trying in this drift here to overtake Kappa now, but Kappa getting a tiny bit more speed, going so close to the wall. These players are risking like there's no tomorrow, all or nothing through these turns, and they're driving dead even pace currently. Kappa just a few hundreds ahead, extending it here though with a better grass part and coming into the identity. Anything can happen here.
Yeah, it's anybody's game at this point. Kappa heading into the lead, entering into the reactor boost section, and actually Aurel with a pretty good landing as well, so he's able to actually at least keep it even. Gwen trying to make something happen and trying to catch back up to the top 2, but it's not making us so far. Aurel going a bit too deep. That will potentially cost him big as Gwen overtakes him for P2, but Kappa will be safe and sound in 1st place unless a catastrophic failure happens, and it will be the points for Martin here and then. 234.674 at the finish line for Kappa, and he will move through to finalist status as well. And here, this is where there will be many tears if neither Carl Jr. or Affi step up.
Yeah, big win there for Kappa, finally breaking through to that finalist mode himself, and now it is desperation call for Affi and also Carl Jr., the defending champion. Aurel, though, early clip on the corner out of this round already with that low speed. It's just going to stack up across this entire section, and we'll put him about 2 seconds behind, I imagine, with that speed loss. So, as I said, all or nothing here for Carl Jr., all or nothing here for Affi. This is when they have to make the stand.
Yeah, this is where they have to step up to the plate and have to make their fights and do their due diligence and get the point that is worth fighting for right now in this competition. Spam currently leading the race into lap number 1 with the identity coming up in 10 seconds. Spam and Carl Jr. in P2 currently. Gwen, Kappa, and Affi will round out your top 5, and Aurel 1.3 seconds down on the leader in last position. Carl Jr. taking the lead from Spam heading into the identity. Here we go with the very first reactor boost gliding effect. Affi going for a bit of an inside line, not able to make the landing stick, and not able to use the glide effect to his advantage, so he still remains in P5. Meanwhile, Carl Jr. holding the lead pretty steadily here, and a pretty speedy exit as well sees him retain the lead as Kappa is now under threat from Gwen for P2. Spam a little bit behind in P4, looks at the top 2 battle, and Carl Jr. meanwhile heads into the final lap in the lead.
Yeah, this is his map pick. It's the final round. He hasn't gotten it to work on the other ones. Gwen, big mistake. Only 3 players at that left chasing him now. 2 have made big mistakes, but Carl Jr. needs to get 1 win on his own pick to make it worthwhile. Else he could have picked any other map here. Spam and Kappa, though, trying to close out their match here. Only 0.2 of a second to go, and that finalist spot will be completed. That playoff spot will be theirs, joining Pac and Papou in the finals. But in order to do that, they have to beat the defending champion of Trackmania Grand League, currently leading now, extending up to 0.4 of a second with just 1 identity to go here.
1 identity to go, and indeed, they have quite the customer right here that they have to deal with. Carl Jr., the 3-time world champion, the reigning champion of the Grand League, and Spam touches the wall on the inside, so that will be putting pay to any chances of the Dutchman to score any points right here and score the finalist status. Meanwhile, Kappa tries as much as he can, as hard as he might, to catch back up to Carl Jr., but it's no use. It seems like Affi going a bit too deep and touching the girder. That will be done for the Swiss driver from BDS, and meanwhile, Carl Jr. from Team Solary will get himself a map win on the board and will move through to finalist status, where our 5 finalists for 4 spots. Now begins the game of musical chairs, ladies and gentlemen.
It is going to be a game of musical chairs. We've had cup mode for all these years, and it's always talked about the 4 finalist status, but have you ever seen a 5 finalist mode? Because that is what we're going into here. And if Affi takes the first win here on Circles, which is his favorite map, we could potentially have a 6-way finalist battle. This is going to be exciting.
This is going to be exciting, and yes, indeed, this is Affi's map pick, Circles by Link. Just a quick recap of the top 2 on Circles to see how much of a chance Affi can actually have. Carl Jr., first place with a 230.840. Remember, these are 2 lap per times. 230.840 for Carl, 230.865 for Affi. So it could still be everything to play for the Swiss driver from Team BDS. If he is able to actually get his game on and get himself some round wins going, he will be a big threat for some of the big players.
Yeah, Affi here, as you said, just 200ths away from the world record. That is how close it is, and these players are driving incredible pace on these 2 laps, but Affi was able to drive that pace 6 laps as well in 2 of the Grand League steps. When he won this map, he won it 2 out of 3 possible times against 16 players back then. Now there's only 5 other players to fend off, so this could really be the chance for Affi to show how good he is on this one map here, Circles. This could be his moment.
This could be his moment, as we're currently spectating the Swiss driver from Team BDS as we're heading into the identity. So jump into the circle, then time your release and your steering immediately to get as much of a low line as you can on the transfer, then get a little bit of a booster action, release and turn at the same time to go the transfer just above the signs and land and try to land actually straight and not land a little bit sideways, as you will lose quite some speed, and that speed will have to be carried out all the way through the free wall section in the final corner, where you are basically coasting to the line to start a new lap.
Yeah, and he will win the warm-up at that. Goes for a bit of a victory flight here. Getting ready in the last 3 seconds now to show what he's capable of on Circles. Let's not forget, though, Carl Jr., the world record holder here, 230.84, could close it out and make it through to the top 6 here.
So we're already started with this one, and you can see the swarm of red names, and Affi is basically going to try to run away from them. It's basically just a case of get out there and try to survive and try to keep that first place. Drive fast, don't crash is a famous quote from Michael Schumacher that I like to kind of throw around sometimes. But yeah, Affi is going to have quite the work on his hands as Aurel, Spam, and Kappa are already right on his right there, snapping at his heels. So it is going to be really tough for Affi, but we'll have to see how this goes as we're heading into the turnover section right now.
Yeah, and it is almost a scene straight out of The Walking Dead here. Affi running away from all the red zombies chasing him. Spam, the closest of which, on his tail right now, chasing a finalist spot himself. Not the map we know Spam for the best here, but Spam showing up huge in the first lap of circles, overtaking Affi ahead of the identity and jumping into it. This will be key here, getting a low exit onto the quarter pipe. Both players getting it well, grabbing the booster, and now a drift to go down into that second and last circle here. Who is going to get the most exit speed? Oh, Affi has got this one under lock and key, getting about 0.10 of a lead over Spam into the next lap. And Affi here could show up huge. Spam going too far. This will net him very low speed in the next part. And suddenly it is Carl Jr. in second place now.
Spam moving down to P3 with that mistake at the ice ranked section just at the start of the lap. Affi having a bit of room to breathe, but as I say that, everything is relative, of course, with just 3/10 of a gap to a three-time world champion. Excuse me about that small statement. That yeah, it's no small feat to actually hold off against the Canadian white line with Aurel in P3, trying to catch back up to Carl Jr. with Spam in P4 at the present moment. Gwen in P5 tails out the leading group with Kappa 1.5 seconds out in 6th place, completely out of it. Meanwhile, up at front, Affi has got everything in his hands to actually get that win on the board. He must actually now have a good identity, try to get this one on the board and try to get a much faster exit at the second transfer than either of his competitors to move through. Here we go, first jump on through the first transfer, and oh, that's a bit of a sketchy one from Affi, even though he manages to make it. He looks sketchy, at least on my end. I don't know how that looked for you guys, but Affi currently in the lead, and he looks like he's got the win on his hands. Oh no, Carl Jr. No, it's not gonna happen. Affi going towards the inside line and keeping that lead. People said Affi wasn't infected in your chat. Well, now he is infected, ladies and gentlemen. 6-way finalists, 4 spots only available. Pick your make your picks.
Oh my! If you're Pack or Papou right now, I think you're breathing a bit easy because you don't have to be a part of this stress fest. 6 finalists, 4 spots up for grabs, and these 4 rounds are all sudden death. We will soon get to know who moves on and who is out of Grand League. Anything can happen now. Have you ever seen this many finalists?
Oh my god. Well, I might have something up my sleeve. I might have to get a bit of a shout out here, just a bit of a parenthesis. The Pittsburgh Knights all-rounder circuit, the battle for 3rd place. We saw a 6-player finalist fight, in fact, on that one. I don't have the exact player lineup on my head, but Spam in the end won it for 3rd place. But now the Dutchman from Team Alliance is not looking good at all. He's 1.1 second down on the lead, which is currently Affi, actually, who's just overtaking Kappa right now, and Kappa under threat from Gwen for P2.
Yeah, Spam their big mistake, dropping down. And we also saw a big mistake from Carl Jr. now. These 2 players are out of the fight. The top fight is so consistent here that one mistake, just 1 second, as you saw, is enough to put you down to last place. So now it is a 4-way battle here. Aurel, Affi, Gwen, and Kappa, and Gwen actually there, overtaking first and extending that lead up to 0.4 now in the first lap. And Gwen has a map win on circles himself, so this is the moment for Gwen now, the young prodigy in Trackmania, to step up and get himself a spot in the top 6. All that remains is about 50 seconds here. He has the lead in his hands.
He has the lead in his hands. He's got a gap, he's got a 0.3 of a second buffer to breathe a little bit. And Affi, who was looking super good in the previous round, is not looking so hot on paper right now. He cannot, he does not have an answer, at least at the present moment, to the pace of Gwen up front. Maybe he might have at the exit of this ice rink, though. He's got much more speed than Aurel, and Aurel moves down to P3. Affi moving up into contention for the lead, potentially with just maybe a 10.5 between Gwen and Affi. 2/10 at just after the turnover section. Affi might be in with a shot of actually winning this and sniping Gwen. It will be dependent on the identity now. Affi has showed that he can actually get some decent pace, but maybe the free will part was his biggest weakness right now. We're getting into the identity for the second and final time in this 2-lapper race. Gwen heading Affi in first and second, in first right now. Second transfer coming in. Gwen and Affi still in that order. Aurel in P3 did not really have any answer to that. Meanwhile, Gwen has got the lead bagged in, and he will get himself a spot in the final 6. He moves through to the next phase. Affi came so close, within half a second of Gwen, but it wasn't to be this round at the very least.
Yeah, and what a pace there from Gwen at 2:31.25. We mentioned the world records going into this. That is just 0.4 of a second away from the world record. The players have had 2 weeks to practice and refine, so very close to a perfect race there from Gwen, and enough to secure the top 3. Now we have just 5 finalists left here, and we're looking to see who can get the final spot that will be given out on circles. Last round coming through right now. Affi once again up in the lead. If he has a chance now to close it out, this is going to be his best one, as soon we're about to change map. So Affi, this is the round, looking to close it out, but Carl Jr. has overtaken him here as we're going through the mid part of the map now.
Yeah, we're going through the turnover, and Carl Jr. has taken the lead away from the Swiss driver. Spam currently sitting in P4, around 10.5 to 2/10 away from the lead pack, currently led by Carl Jr. Aurel in P3 trying to keep up with the lead group, although it's looking to be pretty tough out there. And Kappa also within contention, so within half a second we find first to fifth, and Aurel has made a mistake. I think, yeah, he goes too wide just before the identity, so Aurel might be out of it at the present moment, as currently the top 4 head to the identity with a second transfer coming up for all people involved. Affi having a bit of a sketchy landing, Carl Jr. with more speed and landing much more straight in the final part, and will head into the final lap in the lead of the race with 1:17.005 as the opening lap.
Oh, and Spam making the same mistake twice here. That line does not work out for him. Goes too wide on the ice and gets overtaken by Kappa, and also leaves a lot of time between him and the leader right now. Carl Jr., I think it is coming down to a 1v1 here to close out circles. Carl Jr. versus Affi, the most experienced player in the field together with Spam, versus the newcomer Affi here. He joined up through Open League this year, fought his way through the field of players with Gwen, and now they're here on the big stage in the playoffs together. Gwen has made his way through. Affi here could be next, but in order to get through, he has to beat the reigning champion, Carl Jr., the man everyone who wants to be good in Trackmania looks to beat. And right now, Carl Jr. is holding his own here. 0.10 of a second. Affi, though, one final attack here in the identity could be enough to secure him the spot. We're going to have to see what happens here. Jump into the first circle, drift on through down to the quarter pipe. Carl Jr. still in the first place, but not by much. Affi now, wider line, could have more speed here. It is going to be about the speed for the final straight, and Carl Jr. has the advantage. Can he hold that through the grass here? Yes, he can, and Carl Jr. will move on to the next round.
This is such a missed opportunity for Affi here, just failing at within a tenth and a half of Carl Jr. That was his potential best map right here, and we're heading into half pipe, which is the final map for the final 2 rounds of this particular step. And unfortunately for Affi, as I look through the rankings, he does not have a time in the top 5 on half pipe. This could be maybe the bane of his existence as we're heading there. Papou might be the strongest contender right here, or did Papou? No, Papou went through. Sorry. So Papou and Gwen went through. So Aurel might be in with a shot of actually securing that spot right from the outside with just 1 round win remaining for the GamingPrivé.com player, as we're getting heading into the warm-up for this map that was played from steps 1 through 3.
Yeah, this is a known map to these players. They've been playing it since the start of September here. Halfpipe, one of the most known maps this year. But right now, it is one of the most decisive times to show up on this map, because they have 2 rounds left potentially of playoffs, and they could be eliminated in the first match, the top 8 match. Only 2 rounds remain, and it is do or die for all these 4 players. So right now in the warm-up, very important to get into the flow of things and to get prepared on halfpipe. There's 2 main features on this map. One is this middle part here, where the players need to build up exactly 220 speed for this dirt jump. You can see Spam here, 223, will still manage to adjust that and make it across the jumps. That is one part, and the second part, the identity, the halfpipe jumps at the end that will decide who makes it to playoffs and who does not. These half pipes are going to be crazy.
Yeah, this half pipe consisting of a series of changes of directions between the transfers. Make sure to keep your line as low as possible. That's the theory of the transfer. But with those kind of quick change of directions from left to right as you move through the verts, it could be really difficult to even get the car flush as you exit the ramp of the half pipe, because if you get your car ever so slightly crooked, you're completely done for. And sorry for the bunk on the mic, by the way. As we're heading into the round, ladies and gentlemen, 4 players are finalists, but only 2 will move through. These are the final 2 rounds, ladies and gentlemen.
My oh my, and we saw, I think, everyone failing the quarter pipe, the half pipes in that warm-up, so now it really shows the nerves that are at play here, and that is something you have to keep under control now that we are live in the round. First mistakes coming out from Spam and Kappa here, not that big, but leaving behind half a second almost to the leaders with just slightly unoptimal lines there in the start of the round. Dropping down into the transition now and coming towards the dirt. The first decisive part, Affi there hitting the wall, and he will be out of the fight here if he does not make this jump up to the platform. Will make that, but I think still it's too far up to the leader. 1 second behind will put him into last place as they go into the dirt. Now across this mini identity, this one tough dirt jump.
No, Spam!
Spam, no! Clipping the corner and going straight into the bonk. Kappa has failed, and Aurel has made a breakaway from all the others, 1.5 seconds ahead. Can he hold this lead and secure his spot now? Dream opportunity for the gaming priv driver.
Dream opportunity for the gamingprivé.com. Absolute disaster for Alliance Spam, who had the same exact thing in various steps of the, over the course of the Grand League season when this map was played. Meanwhile, Aurel crossing the transfers very beautifully here as we're heading towards the start-finish line to start lap number 2, and he's extended. No, actually, the gap has shrunk to 1 second to Affi in P2, and Kappa still within touching distance of Affi, although that part just over the hill on the grass has cost a bit of time. Aurel trying to get some pace back up, widening the gap back to 1.6 seconds as Affi has a bit of a rocky timing, touches the wall on the outside of the bump road. Kappa moving him through to P2, but now Aurel with quite the significant margin of 2.6 seconds halfway through the final lap.
It is safe to say that this is all in Aurel's hands right now. This is the situation where you either clutch or choke, a familiar situation to many Trackmania players. This is when you have to keep your nerves under control, execute the correct commands, if you will, and do everything that is in your own power here to secure the round. The first dirt jump will make it on through. Does he get the second one with a clean landing? He does. 1 out of 2 done here. Only the half pipes now between Aurel and a top 6 spot here. What a run it's been for Aurel from the depths of the scoreboard in step number 5, climbing all the way up to the playoff spots, and now with just these half pipes remaining, he could make it all the way up to the top 6 match. First one is looking good. Second one here will be safe and sound. The third one, and if he gets one more, then we can congratulate Aurel for taking the second last spot in the top 8 match, and he will. Aurel is in the top 6.
250.402 at the end of those 2 lappers, and here we go, guys. Money time now. Who do you think will get eliminated? A world champion or a rookie? Kappa, Spam, and Affi now heading into finalist status for what will be the final round of this final 8. Will Affi be able to finally come good and finally get himself into the final 6? Or will one of the 2 world champions, Spam 2012 world champion and Kappa 2018 world champion, make their way through to the playoffs and leave aspirations for a lot of the players in tatters? We're gonna have to see how that goes. Sorry for the weird English accent in the middle of American speaking, but that's how I roll.
It is all or nothing, as you said, and what a matchup it is between these 3. Kappa here, the defending, or well, he won the Trackmania Grand League beta season about 2 years ago now. Suddenly on the tail end of the playoffs, of the playoff dream being shattered just in the beginning here. So now has to... I am so sorry for the jump scare. That was a falling phone, ladies and gentlemen.
Number 2!
We're going to move on with the round here. Affi, Kappa, and Spam in a 3-way battle for potentially moving on and winning the Trackmania Grand League trophy. Currently, though, Affi has left himself 0.3 of a second behind Spam who could try to close this out now.
Spam could try to close this out, although Kappa has made a bit of a mistake in the dirt part, and so Affi will move through into P2, albeit temporarily, heading into the identity. Kappa will take the fight to Affi at the present moment, going very close to the ballouts on the inside. Oh, the speed from Affi heading into the first jump, and he catches back up to Spam, and he will challenge for the lead, and potentially overtaking for the lead as we're heading into the final lap right now. Spam manages to retain it, not quite. Affi sniping in for 0.003 of a second, and Spam in P2 will have to get his act going. Kappa, meanwhile, with less speed coming into the identity, finds himself, well, pretty much about to get disconnected and sent back home.
Spam, big mistake. Affi is extending the lead. It's 2 seconds right now for the rookie, and the two veteran players have both made big mistakes that have let him have an Aurel-esque lead here. 2 seconds ahead. This could be the closer for Affi to make it on into the top 6, trailing 2 world champions here in the dirt. Affi now, same situation, has to clutch this, has to keep his nerves under control. He knows that this is it, this is his moment. This is when he can take that one final step up to the big stage and show that, yes, I do belong here. I do belong in these matches. I am among the top 6 players in the world. This is what it comes down to, these final terms now. And let's not forget the half pipes at the end here. All or nothing for Affi.
All or nothing for Affi, who's driving his car like he stole it with that entry to the first identity. Now that he's got a 2.2 second buffer, he might afford to go a little bit safer now. We're going through the perspective of the Swiss driver from BDS. He's still gunning it through the first 2 transfer jumps, and the third transfer jump coming in right here. He can afford to slow down at the 4th transfer jump. Will he make it? And that's GG. The 2 rookies are through. Affi is your final 6th in here, and the 2 world champions, Spam and Kappa, will be left on the spot and are sent to an early disconnect, Kappa being the proof.